By the way, water.
Water is a good idea.
In my deep alum glass.
And for people just now joining, we're just letting people in a little bit early, but we'll get started in, by my watch, about 3 minutes. All right, and I'm sure more people will file in as we go along. Our peak attendance is usually 5 to 10 minutes after we begin. But for those of you here now, welcome. Thanks for joining today's coffee talk. It'll be a little brief. At this point, we're all Zoom pros. This is Zoom webinar, so your cameras and microphones are disabled by default. If you do want to ask a question, feel free to use the Q&A feature. If you want to chat with everybody, feel free to use the chat. Just make sure you select all panelists and attendees down there from the bottom. And Melanie will go over some of the other interactive features that will be available to you today. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to Melanie Gottlieb.
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon and happy Friday. I'm Melanie Gottlieb, Deputy Director of Acro, and I'd like to welcome you to the first of the fall series of Coffee Breaks, an opportunity for Acro members to discuss important and timely topics in a more casual and interactive environment. We know that all of you are busy at the beginning of your fall semester, and so we thank you for joining us as you close out your week and enter the holiday weekend. As always, we're hopeful that our technology will not fail us. This is a good-sized Zoom call, and we at Acro remain at the mercies of our home Wi-Fi. You can use the chat freely while on the webinar. If you have a question for the panelists, please use the Q&A section to ask that question, and we will get to it at the end of the presentation. If the question is for a specific panelist, please note which panelist. Today, I bring with me excellent colleagues on Acro's executive staff team. Mike Riley, our Executive Director, Tom Green, Associate Executive Director for Consulting and STEM, Tina Dineen, Associate Director, Associate Executive Director for Meetings and Partnerships. We'll share with you the newest resources, our upcoming virtual schedule to meet your development needs, some updates on association news and programs on the horizon from each of my exec team colleagues, and then we'll want to hear from you. Your input is really valuable and absolutely drives the decisions we make and the priorities we set. We're here to ensure that ACRO brings you the tools and information that you need to serve your institution and your students in this dynamically changing environment. It seems as if COVID time, the acceleration of change and the compression of decision-making and implementation timelines is here to stay for a while, and ACRO is here to help. I'd like to hand the mic over to Mike Riley, our Executive Director.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming out on this Friday afternoon before an extended holiday weekend. This has certainly been an extraordinary time for everyone. First and foremost, I hope you're all staying healthy and safe and looking forward to returning to some sense of normalcy. The staff at ACRO are doing as well as can be expected. We just had our a staff call this morning, and everybody is working remotely. We've been working remotely since March 17th. I guess that was St. Patrick's Day. So not many people going into the DC office of late. Do want to thank, Martha Hennebree's been making some frequent visits to, take care of the mail and things coming in, and our accounting staff has been going in frequently. IT staff doing some work in there, but by and large, we've been working remotely and anticipate we're going to be doing this for quite some time. As you know, DC was a little bit of a hot spot for a while. We're still in what they call a phase 2, have not moved to the more open phase 3. Many of the staff use the metro to get to the office, which is a little bit of concern for folks traveling until we have a vaccine. So we're continuing to work remotely, but I want to just thank all the staff who managed to really not skip a beat in taking care of the work of the association. You may know we've had lots of activity near our office since we started working remotely. You may all recall that we purchased space where we haven't been at DuPont Circle for a couple of years. We're only 3 blocks from Lafayette Square, where much of the protesting took place, and now about a little over 1 block from where Black Lives Matter Plaza starts. So it's a pretty exciting part of the city, and definitely look forward to returning to working in person there. We did have a number of staff and members participate in the March on Washington last week. That was of course, a large event still, even though that was impacted by the COVID pandemic. But I was really thankful for everybody that was involved. There's certainly much that remains to be done to address racial injustice issues and support Black Lives Matter activities. So ACRO is going to continue to do that, thanks to the Black Caucus and Cassandra Moore and her leadership for helping to organize those activities. As you know, this is going to be a transition year for ACRO as we try to position ourselves to emerge from this pandemic as strong as possible. We're going to be making some adjustments to our budget. The board's had a chance to review those. We're obviously going to have some revenue impacts as a result of the pandemic. I can tell you, from many of our perspectives, canceling 2 straight conferences and converting the SEM conference to a virtual conference is a surreal experience. And if you think about it, we've been around 110 years. This is, ACRO starting in 1910. This is our 110th year. We never canceled an annual meeting except during World War II. So it really is extraordinary. So I want to just thank everybody. Obviously the work that you're doing on the front lines with students is very important and probably no more difficult than it is now. You're facing just huge challenges on whether you're going to be virtual, in person, trying to maintain social distancing guidelines, serve your students, keep your staff healthy. So I just want to thank all of you for the work that you do and for your faith in the organization, and working together to make sure we come out of this with a strong association that serves our members into the future. So thanks very much for participating. I look forward to the discussion. and I'll hand it back to Melanie.
Thanks, Mike. So Mike gave an introduction. I'm going to talk about our resources and guidance pages, a little bit about what's going on this month at AACRAO, and then I will turn over the mic to our other exec team members for their updates. And then we're going to move into an open forum and Q&A. Thanks, Mike. I'd like to direct you to our COVID practice pages. We have done quite a few updates, and we've combined the resource and guidance pages into a single reference page that includes all of our COVID-related guidance endorsing alternative practices for institutions in times of crisis. It's important to note that more than ever before, as you implement policy and practice changes, whether temporary or permanent, you incorporate clear communication and transparency with all stakeholders, an approach consistent with your mission and philosophy, and consistency of application in the best interest of your students and your campus. To build our guidance, we're using established ACRO standards and guidance, re-envisioning them through the lens of the current situation, and then consulting with subject matter experts from our board of directors and amongst the membership. I'd like to also make sure that you note that in ACRO transcript, which is specifically a member benefit, that the latest news pertaining to COVID will be delivered to your inbox. It's also linked to the COVID update pages. In our government relations and advocacy sections on our website, there is a lot of information that provides you the very latest of what's happening in terms of COVID and higher education. So please stay tuned, check it regularly, because our government relations team is working hard to stay abreast and keep you informed. Next slide. So I've talked to a lot of members in the last several months, and while our in-person meetings have been suspended in the near term, we know that you and your staff continue to have professional development needs. The month ahead is packed with programming that will help you to do your jobs right now. We've launched a new communication called This Month at ACRO to share with you all that we've planned. So look for that in your inboxes. You'll receive that at the beginning of every month. You can also check the calendar on our website at any time to see what's happening. A couple of things to point out. The next 2 coffee breaks are already open for registration, and we have many, many more in the works. As you would expect, the FERPA professor is in with our rock star Leroy Rooker, already has several hundred registrations, and so you'll be in with a crowd. I hope you'll join. Registration is also open for Registrar 101 and the Essentials of Strategic Enrollment Management. These online courses start on September 14th and are the strong foundation that your staff needs to help them weather the current environment. Space is limited, so I hope that you'll register soon for those. We've got a number of webinars scheduled this month. The first is a result of a collaboration between ACRO and ACE, a presentation of research on how students experience and perceive transferring earned credit. And that's on September 9th. On September 14th, we'll hear from ACRO President Jack Miner with an update on the association's strategic planning efforts. And then on September 23rd and 30th, 2 webinars from the experts on our Speedy Committee who want to help your office get up to speed in digital data transfer using Speedy or some other process, which, as we've seen, is more important than ever for maintaining service levels during a crisis. And also, ACRO research continues with 2 expected reports this month, the first on stranded credits and the second from our work group that has developed guidance and best practices on closing institutions pertaining to student educational records. Next slide. We will also continue this fall on our COVID-19 impact practice snapshot surveys. Later this month, look for the first fall survey on the impacts of 2020 disruptions on work and career. What we'd like to know, and we'll ask later in the Q&A, what other questions do you need to know? What other benchmarks are you looking for? So please give that some thought, and we hope that you will share the feedback. Hey, Mike, that is not, well, I guess we'll go ahead and keep that poll. Go ahead and answer this.
End it if you want.
I was gonna ask the campus update poll. My apologies.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right. They're not in order, but that's okay. No worries. So this what we'd like to hear from you is what content is most relevant to you right now. And then both, I'd like a first choice and a second choice from those lists. If you can take a look at those, that would be great. And Mike, you can decide when you think we should close that.
All right. Give it another 10 seconds.
All right, that'll be very good information for all of us as we move forward. It looks like at the top, we have current trends and topics related to my field. And then pretty closely tied are future thinking and COVID-19. And then second for a lot of folks is COVID-19. All right, well, great. Mike, could you launch the survey that talks about campus updates? One thing Mike mentioned that we're all still working from home, and I know that we have a mix of folks working from home and also working on campus. If you could launch the campus status survey. Let us know where you are. Are you working from home? Or are you working on campus or some combination? And I'll let you decide, Mike, when you think you should close that.
All right, I'll close it in 10 seconds here.
Okay. And after I go over those, we'll just take a quick peek and then I'll turn the mic over to Tom. Okay, so it looks like a fairly even split between open and students on campus, or a limited number of students on campus. And most folks are a combination of on-campus and remote work. That's 39%. So good to know, and I think definitely presents some interesting challenges, I think, for you and your staff. All right, I would like to turn the mic over to Tom.
Thanks, Melanie. Just so good to see all these folks in the list of participants here, some very familiar names, some of our board members, some of our staff, and a whole lot of new names of folks there as well. So welcome and thanks for joining us today. So just wanted to give you a few updates on some work that we're doing at ACRAO, mainly around digital learning and digital credentials, and wanted to start with digital learning. ACRO has offered a great deal of professional development, and over the years, a lot of that has begun to move online. During the pandemic, we of course realized that in-person professional development wasn't going to be possible. A lot of times we offer things that are around a meeting, or they might be something that we even took on the road. We did an Acro on the road for a couple of years and took training workshops around the country, and we can't do those right now. So we've really accelerated our focus on digital learning and credentialing. And a couple of really important things there to note that are going on right now. One is that we are moving to a new online learning platform that's going to have a lot more of the bells and whistles, the robust performance that you would expect out of an online learning platform today. Many of you at your institutions have these more modern, updated features, and you're going to be seeing that in ACRAO's learning management system as well. But we're really working now on realigning our content and developing new content to work with our competencies and proficiencies. If you've not yet seen them, go to the ACRAO website and you can just query, search for the competencies and proficiencies. It'll bring you to the web pages that really lay out this framework that ACRAO developed back in 2015, continues to be refined, but a lot of effort went into that by ACRAO members to lay out what are the core competencies that we all need to have for our profession, what are our professional proficiencies by discipline area, and then also level those, entry level, intermediate or mid-career, and then advanced level. And so we're aligning the content that will have a clearer sense of progression. If you want to come in and learn how to really master your craft as a records and enrollment professional, then we want to help you do that and show you that pathway. Also very popular today is the ability to carry some kind of digital credential and have that available to you to put on your LinkedIn page, to share with your employer, to use in potential future employment. And so we're developing those as well. So coming soon, you're going to be able to see a much broader suite of offerings, a much clearer organization of how these offerings fit together in your career advancement, and then the ability to earn digital credentials with those and take those as really proof of your learning from ACRAO. Mike, would you advance it to the next one, please? Many of you are familiar that ACRAO has been leading the way in the creation of new forms of digital records for quite a while, especially since 2015, when we really engaged with this work through a Lumina Foundation grant. We've had 2 rounds of those grants and have done a lot of work. There are also resources available on the website that detail more of that. But the second phase of this, our second grant from Lumina, will be wrapping up at the end of 2020. We have a few state systems that are working with us to provide digital credentials across their systems. And then we're going to have a final showcase event in December, and that of course will be a virtual event. But we'll be really showcasing the work of people from across the entire project, from the earliest adopters through the latest ones that are rolling out today. This work is really moving towards a linkage event or a linkage scenario where we've been working to create these records within higher education so that learning outcomes and competencies make sense to us within higher education, and we have a way to be able to exchange these records with each other digitally. And now what we're looking to do is exchange records between higher education, employment, and the military, and maybe even K through 12. As all these sectors are developing digital learning records, we're really seeing an ecosystem emerging where we'll be able to exchange a lot more information on what students learn in their college experience, not just their transcripts, but of course, we'll still have transcripts as the important information we need to exchange within the academy. Just wanted to highlight a couple of things. IMS Global, which is a standards body, developed a CLR standard about a year ago. ACRAO did a vetting of that in partnership with NASPA to look over that standard and see whether or not we thought it would work for higher education. We did, but also recommended that that needed some robust implementation advice. So we have a new work group that just formed. It'll be having its first meeting this month. And that group will be working to provide all of you in the records field with a really good and robust implementation guide that shows you how to interpret that standard and match your data on student learning and student outcomes to the standard, and then be able to exchange that digitally with other higher education or other entities. And then the T3 network, which is a very broad network that is hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, is really working to create this ecosystem by which we can exchange records across different entities, employers, militaries, K-12, higher education. So it's exciting work, and it's still moving forward rather quickly. I think we took a little bit of a pause during COVID for a few months, but that work is back online and continues to move forward. Mike, would you move to the next slide, please? And I would say one of the things we are most excited about is that as AACRAO has pivoted to this virtual environment, we're going to have our first fully virtual conference coming up this fall. It's going to be the SIM 2020 conference. We have completely reimagined this conference in every way you could think, not just the virtual format, but really asking ourselves, how can we leverage a virtual format to create a really strong, robust meeting that has the same quality you've come to expect from all of our AACRAO meetings. It's the 30th year of the SEM conference, kind of a strange way to celebrate our 30th anniversary this year, being virtual, but we're embracing it. And some of the things that I wanted to highlight on this, first of all, we're going to theme the conference along 3 days, the 28th through the 30th of October. The first day is themed about what have we learned from 2020? What has been the impact of 2020 on higher education? COVID, social unrest, everything that's going on, elections, et cetera. And we're really going to examine that and ask ourselves, what have we learned? What might stick around as a practice? What may never come back as a practice as a result of this seismic disruption? The second day is going to be themed on the future of higher education and really helping us raise our eyes and look to the horizon. And because when COVID does pass and we're able to go back to higher education, remember, we had some significant issues happening in higher ed before the pandemic hit, before 2020. And we really have to pay attention to those and prepare for the future of higher education along many different lines between modalities, between shrinking demographics, et cetera. And then Friday, we're going to have a special day at the conference. And this is really recommitting ourselves to social justice and racial equality. And we're going to ask ourselves, of the practices that we have embraced in higher education and used over these last several decades, what of those practices have really helped us foster social justice and racial equality? And what of those practices have created barriers to that? So we're going to have some special panels, some very special speakers, a chance for people to recommit themselves in a very public way in doing this. And we're really looking forward to this exciting venture. You're going to see some things that we've had in the past that have been very popular. The SEM Institute, the one-day pre-conference workshop will still be there. We're still going to have roundtables and chances for people to socially engage. We're still going to have a team experience. They'll just look and feel a little bit different in the virtual environment, but we're still going to have those things that you've come to count on as part of the experience. And one thing that's going to be unique this year as a real cost savings is a lot of the workshops that were pre-conference and were extra fees are now embedded right into the conference at no additional fee. We're really, really pleased to be able to do that this year. And speaking of meetings, no greater segue than to hand this off to the person who's been helping so much, and the meetings team has been so incredible throughout these last 6 months in making this incredible shift from in-person meetings to virtual meetings. So partner in crime, Tina Dineen, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Tom. That was very kind. And thanks to all of you for being here today. As previously mentioned, I'm Tina Dineen, Associate Executive Director for Acro Meetings and Partnerships. And so as Tom mentioned, we have been in the throes of planning for the SIM meeting that will be held virtually next month, October 28th through the 30th. So mark your calendars if you haven't already. And also, as Tom mentioned, this will be our first ever virtual conference. So a significant amount of time over the past several weeks has been spent selecting and configuring a meeting platform. It reminded me of my old registrar days when we implemented new student information systems and all that went along with that. So that work will continue as we plan future meetings. And speaking of future meetings, we also have in our sights the annual meeting next year that's scheduled for March 28th through the 31st in National Harbor. So along with the program committee, we are planning that meeting as well. And as you probably know, we had always planned for that meeting to be a hybrid model where we offer content both in person and virtually. But as you've experienced and we've all experienced, travel could still be an issue for many of our members next year. So as such, we're exploring not only our options, but the preferences of our members. So we launched a survey earlier this week that was sent to people who attended at least one of our annual meetings over the past 3 years. And our goal was to get a feel for whether people will be able to travel, whether they're receptive to a virtual meeting format, any barriers to participating in a meeting, and so forth. And we've gotten some really good feedback so far. So Mike, we'd like to ask some of our attendees today to answer one of those survey questions. Can you launch the poll, Mike, on virtual meetings? And so this is an example of a question that we asked in the survey, and we'd like for you guys to take this poll right now. How likely are you to attend a virtual ACRO annual meeting? Cue the Jeopardy music.
Yep. Quick response on this one, 75% voting. So I'll leave it up for another 10 seconds here.
Okay.
Do, 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 do.
Yeah, I think if we keep doing Zoom, we're gonna need to like have our own music cues.
Exactly. So this looks very familiar to, it's very consistent with what we've seen from the official survey. So 48% of you are very likely to attend, and whereas 39% or more are somewhat likely to attend. We go a little bit further in our survey that we sent out, asking why. You answered in those ways. Like, what are the barriers? Are there professional barriers, like your school has implemented travel bans, or your budgets have been reduced? Are there personal barriers? Do you have issues with safety and those kinds of things? So not only do we want to know whether you can come to a meeting or whether you would attend a virtual meeting, we want to know why and the thought process that goes into that. So just know that we will keep you posted as decisions are made. I know you have a lot of questions, and we are happy to answer those during the Q&A, but just understand that being sensitive to the needs of our members is our priority. And so any decision that we make, we will keep that at the forefront. Melanie?
Thanks. Mike, if you could bring up the next slide. There you go. So we are now at the part of the presentation where we would like to ask you some questions. And there are a couple of ways that you can respond to these questions. So if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand and the tech team will unmute your mic and you can go ahead and speak and ask us the question. If you're feeling microphone shy and don't want to speak, that's okay too. You can go ahead and answer the question in the chat and we will talk about it. So really these are questions that are going to guide our work as we move forward this fall. And so the first is, what is your top work challenge right now and how can AACRAO support you? The second asks, what topics would you like to see us gather benchmark data for this fall? So think back to the COVID practice surveys. If there are things that you are struggling with and you would love to know how many other people are doing it, what have people made decisions on? If you need to know, let us know that. And then what specific guidance are you looking for right now, or do you anticipate looking for this year? And so if you can share some of that, that would be great. I can't tell, Mike, if anyone has their hand raised, but I think Sisson probably can.
I can, yes. No one currently does.
No one has their.
I
We
recommend
got
that
some.
we get Doug McKenna's For the Record music to play during.
That's right. Yeah, Doug McKenna. You know, this is a fun fact you may or may not know, but the For the Record music was written by Doug McKenna. Like, so he is incredibly talented. All right, a couple of things. Work challenge. Too many initiatives going on at the same time. Yeah, initiative fatigue. Benchmark data. Looking for recruitment and enrollment trends. Yeah, it's kind of trying to figure out what you're going to do with your recruitment and enrollment right now is a pretty hot topic. We do have a coffee break focused on that discussion coming up on the 18th. So I hope you'll join us for that. Work challenge budget cuts. Yeah, I think that's everybody. I don't know how Acro can help with that, but we could probably offer some sympathy and empathy as we look at that as well. Work challenge.
I was just going to say the observation about benchmark data around recruitment and enrollment trends. I think some of you may have seen the Clearinghouse report that just came out about summer enrollments. There were some pretty interesting things there. I think people had thought that the summer was generally okay enrollment wise, but there were clearly numbers of institutions that were down. I think there's an observation that African-American student enrollment was down in the summer, which doesn't portend well for the fall. And, hopefully some of those Clearinghouse reports can get us some enrollment snapshots earlier in the fall than we would get out of something like iPads, which of course has that tremendous lag to it. Because I can tell you, we're getting asked a lot from media, what are we seeing for enrollments for the fall? And it's just really hard to tell. So hopefully the Clearinghouse reports can help us there.
Yeah, I'll chime in just a little bit on that too. I had a chance to talk to Doug Shapiro from the Research Center, and they are going to do some quick snapshots in September and October. The summer one they did was the first ever enrollment trends report from the Clearinghouse on a summer term. And they're going to have some of those. And just to tease a little bit, Doug is one of our panelists at the opening of the SEM conference, and he'll be talking about what they're seeing and how they're analyzing the trends in enrollment this fall. I think we're all waiting to get more than the anecdotes we hear from our colleagues on this.
I see a couple of really good things that are themes around burnout, around trying to manage your staff who have been working incredibly hard all summer and now are still working even harder. Reinventing everything you've ever done. Yeah. Let's see. Navigating course schedule changes, COVID capacities.
Melanie, I see several references to on the questions about staffing issues, retirements, furloughs, staffing options for short-term, et cetera. This is one opportunity we have. We're very fortunate this year to have as our external board member, Rob Shoemaker from Coupa HR, who is their association are obviously experts on staffing issues. So seeing this, that's certainly something we can leverage with them for some assistance in how to, best navigate staffing and budget challenges for getting work done.
There are so many really, really excellent thoughts here. So keep them coming in the chat. And I think what we will do while you're adding these, oh, I love this. What new competencies does COVID provide? Absolutely, we're going to have to think about competencies. Yeah. So lots of really great ideas, and we will definitely dig through those as we look at planning our fall and beyond. So thank you. I think the next piece is I would like to move to the Q&A because we do have some Q&A here for our presenters. And so just as a reminder, if you'd like to speak, if you have a question that you would like a specific person to answer, please note that, because there are 4 of us. And we'll try to get to all of your questions. And if we don't, we'll absolutely follow up with you after the webinar, so long as you aren't asking anonymously. If you're asking anonymously, we can't follow up with you directly, but let's see. Let me go through. Oh, these aren't Q&A, these are open. Okay, how many continued with pass, no pass options for fall? So that's a suggestion for a question to ask. That's good. Planning for early retirements and furloughs, that's a good one. Staffing options for short-term replacements, especially when budgets don't allow for hiring temps. Creative financial aid. So these are more thoughts. Anyone have any specific questions for the staff here?
I saw Lizel in the chat asked a question about data on where students are going. You know, if they're taking a gap year, is there any way for us to gather information on what exactly they're doing rather than going to school? Are they going to community college, or are they just kind of sitting at home?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Does anyone have any thoughts about who we might be able to work with to come up with those data sources?
Well, certainly if they enroll in any level of institution, the clearinghouse reports should be able to help us with that. If students choose a gap year to do something else, that would be a little bit harder to know where they are, because there's no tracking there. But yeah, I'd be interested in that too. We've had lots of questions about, you know, do we think there's going to be an uptick in students doing gap years, or you know, trying to do internships and things? And you know, intuitively you'd say yes, but it's not exactly the best environment to go find an internship or work or travel abroad or do, you know, some sort of foreign learning experience. So students are in a difficult situation to try and do something other than continue their studies.
Here's an interesting, I want to ask my exec team colleagues. Someone has posted public COVID-19 dashboards providing numbers, yay or nay, thoughts. That's a new thing. I've not seen that before. Have you heard of this? I assume for institutions.
Reporting cases and that type of thing publicly, I think it's been very mixed. Some institutions have been very public and putting information on their website or reporting it through press and, you know, actively doing that. But a lot of institutions are doing that only if they're polled or asked. So I think it's really been very, very mixed. I haven't seen, certainly not a best practice on that. I did see one tracker, though, that if you want something that is tracking the number of cases that are reported at institutions, the New York Times has a tracker that you can go to and query on that, and you can find out how many cases are being reported at different campuses across the country. But I'm not aware of a best practice or even consistent practice on whether or not they're doing a dashboard and posting it individually. So I'm not sure which way the question was intended, but I was reading it like you, Melanie, that it was more of an individual practice of a dashboard on their website.
I see one person actually has responded that they are using a dashboard and they are seeing it on many websites. So that's interesting. I haven't seen the dashboards, but I haven't looked specifically on institution websites. I have a question, an Acro question that maybe I will toss to Mike. How is Acro doing now? Canceling conferences must be significant revenue loss. How can members or institutions help?
So yeah, a good question. You know, for the current year, thankfully we had cancellation insurance for the meeting in New Orleans. And after a lot of work from staff to put together documentation, we received an insurance settlement for that conference about 2 weeks ago, which really kind of made us whole for that particular event. Although I can tell you, it's unlikely that anybody's going to get insurance in the future for COVID-19 because it's a known commodity, but we did fare pretty well there. Our membership renewal, which started the 1st of May, we're a little bit behind, about 10% right now. So that's a fairly significant chunk of money. You know, I think we think a lot of it is just the difficulty right now and the disruption. We haven't heard of a lot of institutions saying they don't plan to renew, for example. But if you have not done so, that you're asking how you can help, that's certainly one of the things you can do, is to renew your membership. The board, you know, as they're looking at the budget for next year, we are really going to downsize the budget because there's a lot of revenue that we will not see because of not having in-person meetings. But we're also trying to, you know, basically create a largely virtual year this year, not just for conferences, but for all the other activities, which saves us quite a bit in travel expenses, you know, more than $1 million. So, you know, we do expect to have a little bit of a budget shortfall unless we're able to move a few parts around. But, you know, generally speaking, we're in pretty good shape. We think we just don't know yet how successful virtual conferences will be and how much participation will be. We have seen a lot of our colleagues say they're pleasantly surprised by the number of attendees that have come to virtual conferences. So I think we're doing pretty well. We definitely appreciate our members, you know, renewing their membership and continuing to advocate to their colleagues about the benefits of being an AACRAO member.
Mike, just as a follow-up, an additional question along that same theme, not looking for details, but in general, are AACRAO financials still in good shape?
Yeah, like I say, I think we're gonna finish this fiscal year. We're in the last month of our fiscal year that ends September 30th. I think this year will actually be a positive budget. A lot of our colleagues can't say the same. It's this next fiscal year where we're really going to have to monitor our expenses because, you know, just to show you the significance, we think our, you know, revenue might be down, you know, somewhere in the 25% range. But again, if we can control some of our expenses around travel and other things, I think we should balance out pretty well. I mean, the general idea this year is really, this is a transition year for us to pivot to these new technologies and the new ways of doing business. And I think, you know, I think people are still a little bit worried about spring term, as I'm sure all of you are, because we don't know what's going to happen in the winter months when COVID suddenly clashes with flu season. But I think the optimism is that by fall of 21, we'll return to, you know, some semblance of normalcy, and hopefully AACRAO's new professional development and virtual meeting opportunities will position us well.
There's a question here specifically, and I think I can answer this one, so I'm going to take it. Will AACRAO be providing any additional scholarship or discount options for members who can't afford to attend a conference or workshop? So I want to point out a couple of things. It just went out yesterday, I believe, a call for applications for the 2021 annual meeting grants. So we have two options to support attendance at the annual meeting. The first is the Connor Scholarship, which provides support for AACRAO members to participate in the annual meeting by fully covering the registration fee. Applicants will have to submit a personal statement that describes why they've chosen enrollment in academic services as their profession, as well as a personal and professional benefits that their position, department, or institution will get from gaining that scholarship. The second possible grant is called the Engagement Grant. And the Engagement Grant supports continued engagement at AACRAO meetings for those who are already pretty deeply engaged with the association, but can't attend can't attend the meeting. And so it is a one-time grant. It's in the form of a meeting registration waiver. And those grants and scholarships are open. Also, maybe I might punt it to Tina or Tom to talk about the different registration fees for the SEM conference and how they're a little less expensive than the in-person conference.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sure, I'll start. You join in, Tina, because I'll probably forget something to mention here. First of all, we took a look at our fees just overall and tried to do some looking around at what the field is doing. I mean, there's not a lot of benchmarking. There's some benchmarking. We can see what some associations or meetings are doing. But the first thing we did was generally cut the fees for the SEM conference in half for this, because we know that people are out there having trouble with budgets and costs, and this is just a tough time for everybody. So that's the first thing with it. Second thing that we did was we disaggregated participation in the meeting. If need be, you can just register for a single day of the conference, either Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can take the SEM Institute without registering for any other part of the conference. So we've tried to reduce fees, first of all, provide options. If you can just come to one day and that's all you can do with it, that's fine. Also doing the SEM Institute. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the workshops that we had normally charged extra for, other than SEM Institute, which is a full day before the conference, all the other workshops are included at no extra charge. So we've really tried to, as much as we can, focus on the affordability and value of this. Tina, what else would you add?
The only thing I would add, Tom, is that we've also worked with some of our corporate sponsors and vendors to offer scholarships to some of their customers. So you'll see that as well. I don't know those details because each corporate sponsor is working on it in their own way, but they're going to be giving away some registration SIM conference. So that's very helpful too.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that. There's another question that I think I'm going to jump in and answer from Michelle Dunn. It says, can Acro help facilitate virtual networking events? One of the best professional development at in-person conferences is the networking, which we're missing now. Now, it's funny, I will tell you that is something that we are actively working on. I was working with the comm team and our content and curriculum team just today to work through how we would establish a for members only, it would be free, but for members only networking event that would happen once a month. We're looking at two different models. One would be for the caucuses in particular, because we know that the caucus communities need that in-person interaction in order to continue to build those networks. And so we'll have some networking caucus groups, and we hope to launch them next month. And then general membership networking groups as well. And what these are going to be are, at least in the beginning, are just some Zoom calls with a facilitator or two so that you can get together and talk about what's happening in your office. You know, I'll tell you, I have been talking with lots of members in the last couple of weeks, building the coffee breaks. And what we're finding in these planning calls is that, boy, what we're at least, a third of that call are the members talking amongst themselves about the challenges that they're facing, and having that interaction is sort of our networking and group therapy that happens at our meetings, because it's people who understand what's happening. They do what we do. And so we are very aware that is something that we need to work on, because you need that. And we're going to try out a couple of things next month, and you can let us know if they work or not. Let's see. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Someone anonymously posted that they, attended a couple of virtual conferences where the networking was really good at one and not so good at the other. So This is like your time to help us design the meeting. This is all new for all of us. So if you have any ideas, go ahead and send those to me. I put my email address in the chat, and we're welcome and open to any ideas that you guys have.
So there is one question here that we haven't answered that's a little tongue-in-cheek. But one is, how are we ever going to replace Mike Riley? I want to remind everyone that yes, we are in the midst of an executive director search, and that executive director search is going to launch. All the behind the scenes work has been happening over the summer, and the official search is going to launch sometime this month or early next month. And so if you know people who would make a great executive director, please let us know. Just like at your institutions, these are interesting times to be leading an association. But we have a strong staff, and I think we'll be in good shape to put that, to find the next person to replace Mike. But I can speak for myself that I will be very sad to see him go, but we have him until May, through May.
At least you have me virtually, which is,
yes.
This is not how I wanted to spend my last year. I was really, I had at least 3 state and regional conferences on my agenda to come out and visit, and of course the in-person meetings. So it's been great, but I hope at least virtually to connect with many of you in the next 8 months.
So I see a question here about emails and concern about missing things. So I do want to point out that there is an option to subscribe to certain lists and unsubscribe to other lists. At the bottom of every AACRAO email that you receive, there is and I'm gonna go ahead and go to it. There is a line that says, you are receiving this email because you are an AACRAO member. We encourage all members to update email preferences regularly. If you click the update email preferences, not the unsubscribe from all, please, just the update email preferences, it will take you to a list of public email lists that we use in order to make sure that we're sending you the information that you want. And so there's quite a few things on that list. And so I would encourage you to go ahead and do that. I wonder if this is a little irregular, but I wonder if I should share my screen so I can show you what that looks like so you don't freak out. Oh, I can't right now. Oh, excellent. Okay, thanks, Mike. Here it is. Oh, that's not it. Let me try again. I thought I chose the one that had that up. It's this one. No, it's not telling me. All right. Well, I don't know that I have 2 screens and it's not working for me. I'm sorry. But check your email at the bottom if one of you is not working on 2 screens, but for some reason, even though I'm choosing that email screen, it's not showing it.
Yeah, actually, we were seeing the screen.
You were?
Yeah.
The email preferences? Because
Yeah.
I wasn't. All right, so let me go. Let me do it. Share screen, email preferences, share. So you can see that?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah, trending topics, SEM quarterly, ACRO transcript. You can college and university, core competencies, anything on these topics. So there are many, many things you can opt in or opt out of to sort of tailor the communications that come from ACRO.
Yes, we hope that you will not opt out of all email communications, because that will mean we can't communicate with you at all. And we can't fix that. You actually have to resubscribe, because our emailer takes spam very seriously, and we don't want to spam our members. So, There we go. I'm going to stop sharing. Thanks. All right. I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions. We've got about 4 minutes left. People love the coffee break ideas. Thanks. We are glad you like them. And I think that is it. That might be all. So I guess that I will just say thank you to all of you. I appreciate it. Mike, can you pull the slides back up? Because we have a couple of closing slides. Okay, just a reminder, you saw this slide earlier, so this is just a reminder. The next 2 coffee breaks, September 11th is the FERPA professor is in, September 18th is on recruitment planning for fall 2021 and beyond. And so we hope to see you there. Check the calendar on our website or this month at Acro email. I want to thank my executive team colleagues for joining me today. I feel really lucky to work with this amazing team and all of the staff at Acro to do this work that supports you, your institutions, and your students. And then next slide, Mike. A final reminder that when guidance needs to be tailored to your college or university specifically, we hope that you will reach out to Acro Consulting for a convenient and affordable solution. We know that right now you need to deploy every possible tool in your toolbox to drive student success and enrollment health. Please contact consulting@acro.org or complete the contact form on the website to get started. And someone on Tom's team will be reaching out to you. Thanks again to everyone, and I hope that you have a wonderful and safe and restful holiday weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.